Hey, welcome. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you about the different types of bowls that are out there. If you're buying your instruments for the first time, you might be wondering what are my options? What can I buy? And what's the major differences between them? So that's what I'm going to be going over in this video. Really just a general what types of bowls are out there, what are the major differences between them? And I'm hoping that this will give you a basic idea of what you feel drawn to and what you might want to pursue when you buy your instruments. So, first of all, are these metal bowls. These are really like the original bowls. Sometimes they are Tibetan bowls, sometimes they are Nepalese bowls. No matter where they come from, they are made of metal. And these were the bowls that were used in ancient healing practices. These are the bowls that are used by monks for meditative practices. And these are the types of bowls that are also used on the body. So if you are interested in vibrational sound therapy, which is where like someone is lying on a massage table and then you are putting bowls on their body and playing the bowl so they feel the vibrations, you'll be using these types of bowls made from metal. Most of the time, these bowls are made from bronze. Bronze is an alloy, which is a mixture of metals. Like they melt down the metals and they mix them together. And there's like a range. So I think bronze is a mixture of copper and tin. I'm not totally 100% sure if that's right, but there's like a range of the percentage of both of those metals that makes it bronze. So if you see like differences in color, it's really because the alloy, the mixture of the metals might be different. This one to me looks a little bit more like yellowy, and so there might be more tin in here. There might be more copper in this. It really just depends on the mixture of metals. I've also seen metal bowls, and I have some students who work with aluminum bowls. Aluminum bowls are going to be like kind of like a silver or like a dark silver color. And they have a different sound. They have a different quality to them. In this video, I'm not going to be going over really in detail how and why everything sounds different. I'm going to be doing that in a separate video called Qualities of Instruments. I'll be getting into how the instruments sound different based off of their material, their size, and their thickness, and just some more considerations with that. But really, this video is just kind of like a basic overview. Okay, so I want to draw your attention to one major thing about these bowls. So, hammering. When the bowls are hammered, and I want to just like show you this bowl here, you can see the texture here. The bowl looks really smooth. And then if you look at this bowl, it looks like there's like these divots in here all throughout. And then this one, it looks like almost a little bit like handmade, and it looks like it's a little bit irregular. And this is what I want to draw your attention to. Oftentimes, this happens with gongs as well, with metal instruments. Hammering the instruments really changes the sound. So I want to get into this just a little bit. I'll get into more detail in some other videos. So this texture happens from hammering. Sometimes the hammering can be machine done or it can be done by hand. So this one to me looks like it's machine done because look how perfectly spaced all of these divots are. Whereas this one looks like it's hand hammered. It looks like an artisan, like an actual person sat there and hammered this. And I really mean like with a hammer. They might have like a special like tiny little hammer to create these tiny little divots. But basically, hand hammering is going to be more expensive than machine hammered. This one here looks like it's completely like this has been just put into a mold in a machine and then it's taken out and then the bowl is finished. This one looks like it was put into a mold in a machine, and then there was another step where they did some machine hammering. And then this one looks like it might actually be entirely handmade. So looking at these, you might think this one looks the nicest and it looks the cleanest and it's like pristine. So this one might be the most expensive one. But actually, I think that this one is going to be the most expensive one because it's very likely that a person created this and It probably went through like a mold, but then afterwards it looks like it has quite a lot of like hand, like an artisan actually hand hammered this and molded it while it was still hot. So that's actually going to be more expensive because it takes a lot more like man hours to create a bowl like this. Okay, why would you want to do this hand hammering, or why would you want to hammer this? This is kind of a rabbit hole that I'm not going to go too deep into in this video. I am going to create another video where I'll be talking about fundamental versus overtone. I think that'll be the title of the video, fundamental versus overtone. But basically, doing this hand hammering or hammering in general, it draws out different tones out of the metal. And for some people, this is the sound that they really want to get. So what happens when we hammer the metal is it changes the physical structure of the bowl, which means it actually changes the sound wave too. Whenever there's distortions on the surface, like so those divots are like distortions, it creates more overtones. And like I said, I'm not going to go into super detail. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes versions of fundamental versus overtone. So fundamental pitch is when there's a very clear note that you can hum to and sing along to and match. So a bowl like this that doesn't have any divots at all, this is going to sound like a clear bell. It's going to be like da. It's going to have a really easy pitch for you to like hear. And if you can like, if your ear is good, you can like match that pitch and sing along to it. Whenever something has more divots, it has more distortions on the surface, it's going to create more overtones. Overtones create this sound that makes it so that many pitches are coming out of the bowl at once. So we're going to hear some more complexity to the sound. We're not going to hear just one clear note. We're going to hear lots of different sounds coming out at once. It's going to sound more cloudy. It's going to sound more dense. And some people really like that sound. So I just want to say that, like I mentioned at the beginning, whatever sound you are drawn to is absolutely correct. Just because something is going to be less expensive or more expensive doesn't mean it's better or worse. I would say looking at these, this is probably going to be the least expensive instrument. It's also going to have the most fundamental tone. This one's going to be somewhere in the middle. And then this one is going to be the most expensive, and it's also going to have the most cloudy and dense type of tone. I'm going to give you some demonstrations in future videos, I think in qualities of instruments and definitely in fundamental versus overtone. So if you're interested in learning about that, make sure you check out those videos. Okay, but anyway, these are metal bowls, and these are sort of the main considerations you should think about when you're purchasing them. Oh, and I just want to say one more thing is like oftentimes these bowls come with these pillows, and I really prefer, sometimes they make these pillows in like a donut version where it's like a ring. I would definitely recommend getting the ring version rather than the pillow, because I found that the bowls easily like topple off the pillow, and the ring or the donut pillow, it stays on a lot better. Just a little random thing for you with that. Okay, let's move on to the crystal bowls. Crystal bowls, there's a lot of variety. There's a lot of different types. You can see here, like these all look very different from each other. And so let's just get into the different types of bowls with these. So crystal bowls, first of all, are a completely modern invention. These bowls only existed in the 80s. So if anyone's telling you that like they used like ancient, there's like ancient practices with these bowls, it's not exactly true. Those are really like from these types of bowls. Anyway, this comes from someone basically discovered in like Silicon Valley that it was like a material that they were using for computer chips, and it was completely on accident that someone discovered that this material is super resonant, meaning that it really sings and it has this really beautiful sound and it holds for a really long time. It's sort of like like a crystal glass with water in it, it really can ring for a long time. And so this is sort of what created this whole modern world of sound healing, which is very exciting. So I want to start with these. These are the frosted crystal bowls. This is these are really common. Honestly, I've seen lots of people with all of these, but I would say these are sort of the most common. They are, of all the crystal bowls, the least expensive. And so I think that this is sort of how a lot of people start with sound healing. There are some things to think about with these is that they are really quite heavy. They're made out of a thick crystal, and then on the outside they're sandblasted. So the outside is, I actually have, my bowls are I have a bunch of these frosted bowls, and the outside, since they're sandblasted, they have this like texture to them on the outside, and that's something that you should keep in mind. When you're purchasing mallets too, and that's a totally separate topic that I'll get into. Okay, these are the frosted bowls. What you really need to know about these is that they're heavy and they're thick. So if you are someone who's thinking about going to the beach or the park and bringing your bowls every time, these might not be the best option because they're so heavy and they're so big that it really is kind of a chore to move them around. Whereas these bowls are much easier to move, they're much lighter weight, and they're much more durable. They're not going to be as easy to break. Okay, then I've seen these painted bowls quite often that have become really popular. If there is anything that I wouldn't recommend, it would be these. But it's not because they're bad. They're not. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these at all. The only thing that I don't particularly like about these painted bowls, basically they are the same as the frosted bowls, but underneath a layer of like lacquering to make them smooth on the inside, a layer of paint has been added to them to make them colorful like this. And what that does is it adds mass to it. And when we get to qualities of instruments, you'll learn more about this. But basically, when we add mass, when something is thicker, it makes the tone more piercing. It makes the tone more cutting, and the thicker the material is, the more the sound is going to be very direct. So I find that these actually don't have as soothing or relaxing a sound as these do. These ones have a little bit more of like what we call a brighter tone. Also, these are even heavier than these ones. These are going to be heavier because they have a layer of paint on them. And it might seem like, well, how much does a layer of paint really add? But like, even if it's just like an ounce or like a half an ounce, it's enough to really change how the bowls play, and it's enough to change how they sound and also how they feel when you pick them up and move them around. So I'm not the biggest fan of these. I think they look really cute, but I think if you would like to get colorful bowls, I would probably recommend getting a set of like alchemy bowls instead. So let me talk about those. Before we do that, let's talk about the crystal clear bowls. Basically, these are the same as these, but they haven't been sandblasted and they're thinner. The crystal that they use for these has to be a little bit higher quality. The sandblasting will sort of like cover up any imperfections on the crystal, whereas these, with the clear ones, they really have to make sure that the crystal is like really pristine and perfect. So there's no sandblasting, so there's no texture on the outside, which can make it a little bit easier to play. There's less white noise sound from your mallet. These are definitely more delicate than the sandblasted ones. So just something to think about. And what else about these? They're just thinner, they're more delicate. And they might have a little bit more relaxed of a sound. Again, I'll get more into this when we get into qualities of instruments, but these bowls have just like a really like focused and forward sound. And then these have more of like an ambiance, like the sound surrounds you a little bit more than it cuts through you. If we're talking about energetics, like these types of bowls are going to cut through the energetic field, whereas these types of bowls are going to feel more like a massage to your energetic field. Hoping that makes sense to you. These are alchemy bowls. And in particular, these are crystal tones. And that's the brand that makes these. I'm going to have a separate video just on crystal tones bowls. But basically, alchemy bowls. Alchemy is a mixture. It's quartz. It's like the same as this crystal quartz, but it's infused with another gemstone or a crystal or a precious metal. So really, this is the same as this, but this one has just like some extra crystals added to the mix. So that does make them a little bit more expensive, actually quite a lot more expensive. So something to keep in mind, if you are like on a budget, I would definitely recommend the frosted bowls. This is a great way. You can get a really high quality set of frosted bowls for like of seven, I don't know, around $1,200 maybe. Whereas with the Crystal Tones Alchemy bowls, one bowl will be like $1,200. So, I wouldn't recommend this if you're like on a budget because you just can't buy very many. And if you would like to get started, then there's definitely ways to do that for less money. What else do I want to say about this? These bowls are so thin and so delicate, and there's a lot of beauty in that. They really do have this gentle tone to them, a really gentle sound to them. They work very well virtually if you have microphones that pick up audio very well. The microphones are going to need to be very close to them. They're quieter than these bowls. So let's say, again, if you're like going to the beach or the park and you are leading sessions, you're going to want to make sure that if you're using bowls like this or like this, since they're thinner and they're more delicate, they just aren't getting the type of volume that these ones are. So you want to make sure that people are closer to you so that they can really hear these bowls. Something that I don't have pictured here are practitioner bowls. And that's basically, I don't think they do them with sandblasted bowls. I think it's really only with these more delicate bowls. They have a handle on the end of the bowl for you to hold. And it's so cool because you can get them going, you get the bowl going, and then you can wave it around. And what's so great about this is that you can really create a beautiful somatic experience for people. So instead of this like flat or rounded bottom, there's a stem that you hold onto with your hand. And you can like wave it around. If you work with one-on-one clients, you can wave it around in specific areas to clear any blockages or just address any specific areas. And the practitioner bowls are really great if you want to create some more somatic experiences, or if you work with a lot of one-on-one clients or in like really small intimate groups. That can be just like a really great way to bring some more dimension and some more variety to the sound that you're offering. So these are really the main types of bowls that I want to get into, that I wanted to get into, is like the metal bowls, the difference between the hammering and the differences between sandblasted, the painted bowls, the clear crystal bowls, and alchemy bowls. In terms of price, these are probably going to be the least expensive per bowl. But also there's a lot of variation in the pitch here. So if you are a lot of people who are like trained musicians like to work with me, if you are very concerned about the pitch being exactly perfect, then you'll probably have to spend more money to make sure of that, because these tend to have more variation in the pitch. With these, the crystal frosted sandblasted bowls, these are definitely the least expensive out of all of these. These ones can be around the same price. They can be a little bit less. Again, the sandblasting and the painted usually covers up a lower quality crystal. So, not that that's a bad thing. I just want to just be aware that usually like when they're painting over it, it's not going to be because it's the highest quality. These to me seem to be like a little bit higher in quality, but they're definitely more expensive. So you need to have a budget that allows for it. The alchemy bowls really can be a huge range. I'm going to have a separate video just on crystal tones specifically because there's a lot of information. These are a big investment. Like I said, the least expensive bowl I think is $1,200, and they go up to like $10,000 per bowl. So just something to think about. If you want to make an investment like this, I'll have a separate video on, how to go about that. But yeah, hopefully you found that helpful. Just knowing what's out there and the different types of bowls, like there's a lot of options. And it's good to just think about some of the logistics also of like, do I want to have like heavy instruments or do I want to have more lightweight instruments, or does that even matter? Is that really even playing into it? So that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one.